Sitting with me now is our UTVS legal analysis, Carleton Crutchfield, to give us a legal perspective on the Jamal Clark case. So, Carleton, do you think this was a just verdict?
Well, it hasn't actually gotten to that point of being a verdict. Verdict is before a jury. It never got to a jury. The county attorney decided that he would not level charges against the officer. So we are at the point now where those charges won't come forward and it will never get to a jury. Do I think it's a just decision? Well, you know, the county attorney looked at the evidence and made a decision not to level those charges at the officers.
Okay, so what is the purpose of keeping this from a grand jury?
Well, that was a unique feature of this case. About a month ago or so, the county attorney decided not to impanel a grand jury to look at the evidence. He got the evidence directly from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, made an assessment on that evidence, and carried forward with his decision not to charge the officers. I think it's a matter of prosecution control. It's incredibly difficult to get an indictment out of a grand jury. And so in police shooting cases, in other cases it's really easy, but in a police shooting case it's very difficult. So for the county attorney made the decision to keep control of this process and not impanel a grand jury.
Can you explain to us what was why the handcuffs were such a pivotal point of evidence?
Right. Handcuffs, incredibly important evidence. Incredible. Why? Because the standard here is whether or not a homicide was justifiable or not justifiable. If it's not justifiable, it could be murder, could be manslaughter. Justifiable homicide would be a case in which you have someone who is posing a grave immediate threat to your personal safety or the safety or life of others around you. And in this case, Officer Schwartzy felt in his instantaneous decision, looking at the fact that he claims that Clark was reaching for the other officer's gun, posed that threat because if he'd had that gun in his hands, they could have both been killed and other people could have been killed as well. It's a very, very quick thing he has to decide, average 2 seconds or less to make that judgment call, and that was a judgment call he made.
All right. And do you know how this will affect the trust that the black community has with police officers?
Well, I don't speak for the black community, I don't speak for any particular community, but I can only guess that it will not be a good thing. We already have a very difficult situation with regard to community policing in the black community. We've had so many cases throughout the country of young black men being shot by police officers and no indictments, no charges leveled, etc. So I think it's only going to add to that problem.
And finally, what will be the national ramifications of this case?
Well, I think it will play into the narrative that we've seen across the country, from New York in the Gardner case, Missouri, Ferguson, and here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We've got a problem in community policing. We've got a problem with our style of policing. We need to be thinking more in terms of working with community as opposed to a military-style policing where people in the community are seen as enemy combatants. So I think it will hopefully open up a dialogue, maybe get into the issues of body cams, for example, which is good and bad, and community policing and different policing styles as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us today.
My pleasure.
Back to you, Kyle.